Hi, this is Mrs. Cheng reading the article with you for your assignment. This video is to help you learn how I do reading, and I'm looking at strategies to help me stay focused on what I'm reading, to help me understand what I'm reading, and to help me summarize what I'm reading so I don't lose track of the big ideas. Okay? So first thing I would do before I start reading is I'm going to look at the headline, the picture, and the source. So I see this is from the Toronto Star. It's from February of this year, so it's recent. I know the Toronto Star is usually a credible source. I can trust the information here. When I look at the picture, right away, I know this has something to do with either flooding or these children are really scary and they're walking on water. But it looks like flooding, and of course there's the word floods. And a big key word for me here is the Toronto Islands. So in case some students don't know where that is, this is a map of Toronto. We are located right here, right? We're near Don Mills and a little bit south of Eglinton. We're close to the Don Valley Parkway. This is where Mark Garneau is located. The Toronto Islands is all the way down here. It is actually an island surrounded by water, and there are several little islands that are part of it. It even has its own airport. I bet you several of you have taken the ferry across and been there. But that is where this particular problem of flooding has been happening. So a couple things I'll do as I'm reading. Toronto Island residents have started sandbagging in preparation for floods. So these are key words here. Residents, if you didn't know what that means, you can make a comment there and remind yourself what it means. If you need help, you go to tools, look up dictionary, and it tells you it's a person who lives somewhere permanently for a long time. I'm going to copy that and stick it here to remind me, and that I also get marks for doing this in the course because it shows me I'm defining what I'm reading. When I'm looking at a definition, sometimes I need to change the word. A person who lives somewhere for a long time, okay, or a long-term basis. The word permanently might be hard for some people, so use language that makes sense to you. Another word here is sandbagging. So sandbagging is, if you're not sure what that is, you could look it up. Again, Tools Dictionary, and it tells me it's a barricade using sandbags. Barricade is a hard word, but it means like a wall or something that's preventing it. In this case, if we look at the picture, here's the sandbags. These are, and then it's actually trying to stop the water from going in. In this picture, it doesn't look like it did a very successful job, but further down, maybe it is preventing the water from going in more. So let's read together. The other thing I would do as a secret trick too is before I start to read the article, I would look at what the questions are. So in my other video, I went over the questions, but just as a reminder, before you read an activity, if the teacher has provided questions, I like to look at them to get the keywords. So why are the Toronto Islands at risk of flooding? I'm going to highlight that for myself. You don't have to do this, but I find it helpful. Why are they flooding? What are 3 different suggestions that can stop the flooding? So I'm going to highlight that for myself. I'm like, okay, I'm looking for ideas that prevent it. And I'm looking for why people living there are worried about the flooding. Okay, and so why are they worried about the flooding other than their homes? Okay, I also need to make 2 definitions while I'm reading. So up here, water in the Great Lakes is hovering near historic highs, and Toronto Island residents have begun preparing for a 3rd year of flooding. Increasingly, the blame is being placed on climate change. This isn't related to the spring melting of snow. This is related to global water levels increasing, said Councillor Joe Cressy. So here, this word, just so you know, this is councillor. And a councillor is someone who is elected into a government to represent your neighborhood. And this neighborhood is called Ward 10 because Toronto is divided up into wards, and it's Spadina-Fort York ward. And this ward includes the Toronto Island. The islands and parts of Toronto were flooded in 2017 and again in 2019, when water levels in Lake Ontario reached record highs due to wet weather. Lake Ontario is about 10 centimeters higher than levels recorded at the same time last year, and 48 centimeters above normal for this time of the year. Okay, so I'm going to stop for a second and just think about what I just read. So if I'm summarizing here, I'm saying that the islands have flooded already in 2017 and again in 2019. So if I want to just make a note to myself, I can say it flooded twice. Past years. Okay, so far it flooded twice in the past years. It might not be only those 2 times, but it's been flooding a lot. And this just helps me summarize the big ideas as I'm reading. Also, over here, I'm noticing 48 centimeters above normal for this time of the year. Is that a lot? I don't know. Is 48 centimeters a lot? I'm not quite sure. It typically peaks in early June. Although the chance of flooding is now 30%, Toronto Islanders aren't taking any chances. They've set up a flood prevention committee that began meeting in January to raise money and work together. It is possible to use dams to control how much water goes into Lake Ontario, but lowering the water level of Lake Ontario can create problems in the St. Lawrence Seaway, so it is not an easy decision. Do you see how this paragraph has at least one answer to one of the questions that we've asked earlier? If you see what that is, maybe put your own comment right now to help you remember. If you need more time at any point, feel free to pause the video if you're trying any of these activities out with my prompts. About 675 people live on Wards Island and Algonquin Island, two of the many small islands that make up the Toronto Islands. On Monday, members of the Algonquin Island Association began installing large and small sandbags along the seawall protecting them from Lake Ontario. The association is putting $6,000 of its own money towards the $20,000 that Islanders hope to raise to improve flood prevention measures. The city announced on Tuesday it is working with the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority on such projects such as the construction of a beach curb on Wards Island and fixing the existing seawall at Algonquin Island. So again, these 2 paragraphs have a lot of information about which question. Give you a hint. Seems to be about prevention strategies. So what are they doing that maybe can help prevent flooding from happening? People living on the islands are worried that more floods could close Cibola Avenue again. It is the only emergency access road connecting fire trucks and police, but because of the flooding last year, it was closed for some time. So, at first, I was thinking, why is this street important? But then it explains it's important because it's the only emergency route for people living on the island. So imagine if this road gets flooded, then it's going to be a real problem for people living there, right? Islanders are also trying to ensure there is an evacuation plan. Evacuation means to leave quickly, emergency leaving. So to leave quickly, usually in an emergency. Okay. So Islanders are there to ensure there is an evacuation plan in case houses are flooded and people's electrical systems fail. There are a lot of elderly and seniors who live on the islands. A proper plan is important to ensure all lives are safe, especially those most at risk. Okay, so just to think about the last couple thoughts here when I go back, it doesn't maybe seem like a big deal to me if we have flooding. I mean, I've seen Union Station flood, I've seen the Don Valley Parkway flood, I've seen the GO trains get stuck in floods from the news, but imagine if you're living on an island. What's a little bit scary about that? And the water starts to go higher and higher and higher. Like, people living on the island, they don't have as many access points, do they? So that's something to kind of keep in the back of your mind. Anyway, I hope that reading along with me has helped. Okay, I look forward to seeing your definitions and any comments on your Google Doc. Again, you don't have to make a copy of this article at all. It's already made a copy for you. And all you have to do is press submit at the top of your Google Doc when you're ready to hand it in. but do make sure you've answered all of the questions. If you need help with that, the other video goes over the questions a little bit, and this part here, the other video discusses what you do with creating your own questions. Thanks again, and look forward to this being handed in by Monday morning.